Welcome to CultureCast, everyone. I'm here with Jenaro. Before we get into his introduction, I would love to introduce you to his work played to my CultureCast welcome tune. So let's take a look, everyone.
Hi.
Right on. Happy CultureCast and welcome, Jenaro, founder of Street Art Chilango, art director at Sachcrew. You are an OG artist turned engineer, turned master's of science degree in finance, and then back to being an artist. What the heck, man? Like you're a little bit of everything, which is amazing. And so, welcome. Great to see you.
Hi, Marisa. Nice to see you. Thank you for inviting me to your culture cast. I'm
Yeah.
very proud to be here. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit of my life in a sentence. I love
Yes.
art. I've always loved art since I was a kid. My grandma, she used to be an artist. She taught me how to paint in aquarelle, oil, pastels, carbon. All of those things I used to do when I was a kid. Since I was like 6, 7, I used to spend all my afternoon painting, going to painting classes, and doing that kind of stuff. Even I got to win a prize for a Lufthansa painting contest when I was 7. That really kind of showed me that this was kind of my way. And actually, when I was also like 9 or 10, one day I decided to just grab my mom's phone book and start calling every contact without her knowing, and created a gallery in my living room, in my mom's living room, in our house living room, with all my paintings, and decided to sell them off. And my mom just came back from work, and she said, like, why is everybody here? Why are all your paintings on the walls? And I said, this is a gallery now, mom.
That is amazing. Oh my goodness. So I didn't realize really your grandmother was the one who influenced you and gave you all the resources to discover your being an artist. And then I love this at 9 years old, calling your mom's people. I mean, what did you do? You're like, hi, Ola, this is Anato. Come see my
Yes,
art gallery. Like,
totally. And people say like, what are those numbers on top of the paintings? And I say, they are the prices. And they say like, oh, that's so cheap. That's like 5 pesos. And I say like, no, that's in dollars.
nice. Here's what I love too. When I was 9, I grew up with two brothers. My parents worked all the time, so we would be at home after we did our homework and we would make up stuff, right? So we would pretend, hey, let's run a restaurant, like stuff like that, and put a step stool in the kitchen and use that as a window and pretend that we were running a restaurant and, have all of our stuffed animals come by. But you're doing it for real, like literally people coming in and paying you. I love that. Um, but then I you have been an artist from the very beginning and to introduce you as an engineer and then someone with a master's in finance. What's up with that? So how did you end up on that pathway?
Well, yeah, it's crazy, crazy path. And it all had to do with my dad.
Okay.
So my mom, my dad divorced while they were they both studied at Stanford University. We were living in Palo Alto. And then we went back to Mexico, and my dad was not present all the time. And then when he kind of went back in my life when I was like 15, he taught me that no, you don't have to be an artist. You should be an engineer. You should be a financial engineer. And so he started telling me, teaching me everything about world economy, finance, how like the countries work, all the basics, Adam Smith, all of that kind of stuff. For I spent all my teenage years instead of just getting high with other guys, just taking classes with my dad about global finance.
Wow.
And I also had like a lot of interest in computers. So that's why I decided to actually go ahead and study electrical engineering. I did that. I majored in software programming, and my dad always wanted for me to create like algorithms to speculate on Wall Street. So that became my major in software programming. I created what's now called machine learning, but it's based on genetic algorithms, and I was doing all that like 20 years ago. Now it's a total boom. I already been
Yep.
there. So yeah, I was doing that. I showed all my discoveries to my dad. He was like super proud of me, and that actually landed me a job at PMI International, which is like the biggest trading room in Mexico City and the
Yeah.
whole of Mexico. We are used to buy it, sell the oil, buy the fuel, buy it at Rotterdam and Amsterdam, all of the Netherlands, hedge them through future contracts in New York, and bring the ships down to Mexico, and then unhedge the ships and make good profit for the state-owned company. So I was doing that for also like a couple of years. I learned a lot of how to actually run a business
Yeah.
through like understanding all the back office at the risk management department of that enterprise at the trading room. And from there on, I decided to continue on this path and applied for many masters in finance. Finally got accepted in the business school in Barcelona, Pompeu Fabra, which is a quite rigorous academic program. It's taught in English. It's all of students from all over the world, like 70 per generation. And I went there to Barcelona to do that. I also had my sister already living there. Already had one of my best friends living there. I love Barcelona because I've been there many times, and I said one day I'm gonna move here. I chose Barcelona instead of going to Utrecht in Holland, which was also another master's that I got accepted into, which was on stochastic mathematics,
Oh,
which
geez.
has to do with probabilities, if you're not familiar with that word. And I'm glad I chose. I'm I'm glad I chose Barcelona. So that was also a good choice.
Yeah, Barcelona is a good vibe too. I love that city. And I'm not familiar with the other place in
Oh,
Holland, but yeah.
that's a student city. It's very
Okay.
very cool. It's like 250,000 students
A
live
lot
there.
of people. Wow.
Yeah, so it would have been also fun.
So did you change courses after in terms of your career when you got your master's of science and finance?
So
Or
yeah,
what?
exactly. So I finished my master's, and then my friends in Barcelona told me, "Hey, you want to go back to finance, or you want to like embrace your true self of being an artist and doing art related stuff? Because we're opening a company that has to do with like doing business for another business, but in the marketing and arts and photography kind of things." And I said, like, let me think about it. I went on a trip for New Year's Eve to Belize. And while I was in Belize, I said, yeah, this is what I have to do.
Yeah.
Uh, and the guys at PMI wanted me back. And I said, like, I'm sorry, guys, I'm going to do something crazy. I told my parents about it. They were like super disappointed in me. They said, like, no, no, you already made it. This is not like this is not something you can do. Uh, and they just got like really disappointed. But I went back to Barcelona and actually started with this company, and that was 2007, and we started having like a great amount of success. Like Vans shoemakers, like they hired us to make them brochures and below the line marketing schemes, and things started going like really well, and I was like really happy about that. So I remember that moment with like super with a smile on my face, and and that's how it all started. But
Wow.
then it kind of became like super difficult after the 2008 financial meltdown came in.
Sure. Yep.
So
I remember that.
yeah, so that changed everybody's lives, and I said for myself, I'm so glad I was not in the finance industry when that happened
Hmm.
because, everything about related to finance sucked and nobody wanted to do anything regarding that. And I was already very happy about already being in the creativity and art business. But then as it started tumbling down, all of our clients, they started calling, and all the guys that owed us money were not paying, and
Sure.
so we had to close down the company. So that was kind of a really sad moment in my life because we had a loan from a bank, and the bank made a TV commercial out of us for being a success. And then we end up crashing the company. So yeah, it was a very sad moment in my life. So after that, I decided to quit Barcelona and I moved to Berlin, the artist capital of the world,
Nice.
where everybody is an artist or is going to be an artist or is there because of art. So I liked it a lot. I was amazed by the street art scene there. Everybody was just doing art, pasting it on the walls, and everybody was an artist. Everywhere you went to have a drink, like the Club de Visionnaire, everybody was telling you what they are going to surprise the world with their art. So that really inspired me a lot. I met some guys that they were in the management team of our already renowned artist called Tim Roelof. He's doing like collage, and he had like an intervention, a collaboration with
Hmm.
Versace. So they put his art in like a catwalk in Milan, and he became like super famous. He had a studio at this place called Kunsthaus Tacheles, which was like a abandoned building from 1915 that had a history of its own, that was actually a jail in the Second World War II, and then it had a bomb falling on it, and half of the building like got destroyed and never got repaired, and the studios were like without walls, you could see like through it, very dangerous place as well. And yeah, that was the place to be in Berlin back then. And so I asked him if I could join his management team to learn from him, and actually I did. So
Wow.
so so that was like a life changer because I started seeing everything from the point of view of how art can really be a business and a really good one, and how it can be consolidated in a very professional manner to actually sell prints, merchandise, tour around, be in galleries, etc. And that was like super enriching experience. And then funny thing is that afterwards, I also had a second job in a tours company. It's called Alternative Berlin,
Oh,
and they had like free tours, and they had a street art tour, and they
love
wanted
that.
me to be at the end of the street art tour, like teaching how to use stencils with spray paints. So that was good. It was like nice, easy money. But the best part of that was that I met many other guys that had the same job as I did, and they were also all artists, and they were also doing a lot of stuff, and and that created this community of people that we were doing something meaningful. And one of them, he had just recently opened a website on Facebook, like the Facebook page,
Yeah.
uh, Street Art Berlin, and he was just posting the pictures they were like finding out in the city every now and then, and that page started like gaining a lot of traction, a lot of engagement, a lot of likes, and I was like really amazed by his project. So I started hanging a lot with him while on work or after work, and I told him like, I love your project, you know. And then what happened is that one of my best friends, he got married here in Mexico City. I flew back from Berlin, came here, and then while I was here just visiting for the wedding, I realized that nobody was like into street art or
Yeah.
muralism. That was like so forgotten because Mexico had like an epic muralist, but last century, like 100 years ago. And since then, nobody actually talked about them, or they were not like in the cool. So, so I said like, well, that's an opportunity. So I came back. So I went back to Berlin, and the day I went back to Berlin, the police closed down the Kunsthaus Tacheles. So I was left without a job with
Oh
Tim Roylos.
no.
Yeah, I couldn't believe my luck.
Wow.
Yes, and then they sold the whole place to I think BMW to make it a car museum. So that was super sad. Just I couldn't believe my luck. I said like, I'm just not getting out of this. And then
Maybe maybe it was luck though.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
it
I think it
gets
was
even
luck that that
stranger.
happened.
No,
Yeah.
it gets even stranger. Let me
Oh, okay.
just follow through. So what happened next is that I came to Mexico City for Christmas because I really wanted to avoid being in Berlin in the winter because it gets like to -20 for a month, like nonstop. I'm a warm-blooded person. So while I was here, all of my family were like, "Hey, you have to start doing something with all your degrees. You cannot just be like a graffiti artist, just painting in the streets." My grandma, that she taught me all about art, she said like,
Mhm.
"You're gonna be a poor person because you're painting for free on the streets." Like everybody was like super disappointed, and I said like, "Well, I'm gonna start like doing these interviews for a position at Google." So I started that. I went through 6 interviews. Like I couldn't believe it. Like how many interviews do you need to hire someone, right?
Oh, at minimum at Google at 6. Just
So
there's
I
this
was at
thing.
the 6th interview, and that day I had my trip back to Berlin, and the interview went for like 3 hours, and it was like nonstop. And because of that, I lost my flight.
Oh no.
Yes. So I couldn't believe it's the only flight I've missed in my whole life. I missed it just because of the 6th interview. And then I said like, well, now I'm stranded in Mexico. I like have no money to get back to Berlin. If this interview doesn't go through, I'm done. And then that's where the moment I said, well, I'm gonna start this. I'm gonna copy my friend's scheme from Street Art Berlin, and I will do it in Mexico. I called him and said like, you mind if I do the same but in Mexico? He said like, go ahead, no problem. And I did that. I opened the Facebook page. I went around, took a couple of pictures of many street art that I just saw where I was living at, and and went to sleep. And next day, that page had already like 30 likes and a lot of engagement. And I said like, oh my God, there's something here. Like people are really into it, but there's like no market for it. No one is doing this. So that day I went out and started like taking more pictures, going to places where I knew there was art, started uploading them right away, and the engagement kept on going and going and
Wow.
going. So I said, I'm going to make a website which I'm going to program an API that's actually going to start looking for hashtags on Instagram and then use the metadata to put them on a map so we can find out
Oh
collectively
yeah. Yep.
all all the street art from Mexico City just by using the hashtag. So I opened that. I created the hashtag Street Art Chilango, and I started telling everybody just to take pictures with their smartphones. So using the hashtag Street Art Chilango, and those pictures would start appearing on a map on the
That
website.
is cool.
Yes, and that's what started happening. I got a call from Google and said like, "Oh, unfortunately, you are not going to be chosen for the for the job." And then I said like, "Oh my God." So I have nothing left just to pursue this project, which is starting to get engagement, and I'm just going to do it full time because I actually have like no other escape.
I love it. I mean, this is a crazy journey. And again, I'm a big believer in things happen for a reason. But there's a couple of things to unpack from your journey to Street Art Chilongo, which I do want to get into because there's so much to unpack here about, first of all, your creativity and your passion. There are a lot of people who listen to this, watch this show, and say, well, where do I start with culture? And a lot of it starts with you as the individual and getting real clarity on your purpose and what you stand for and your values. And so I think what rings true in the story that you told us about your journey is that you followed your passion no matter what. And although, same thing, I think I have similarities always listening to my parents. And, I was I love math and science. I was a biology major undergrad when I started, but then I came out as a business major and they're just like, well, if you're not going to be a doctor, then what are you going to be? Right. And even having chosen a profession, which was called human resources, they're like, well, what's that? That's not even business. So, anyway, I think about that and you still going back to your passion. And I think a theme that I've seen with two types of people creatives. So there's creative individuals. I mean, definitely you are one, and also CEOs. There is this theme of engineering as a foundation, and creativity at the same time. So it's that whole left and right side of the brain. You kind of have demonstrated that in your journey. And then again, things happen for a reason, right? Like, yeah, Google made you miss your flight. And again, who needs 3-hour interviews? I mean, that's a whole other conversation. But the fact that it brought you back to Mexico City, you talked about how Mexico artists and murals from back in the day are like OG before even street art and graffiti. I mean, it's like the OG street art, right? If you think about like back in the day, which I want you to get into, and then bringing that experience from artist communities and culture into Mexico. And what I'm super excited about, and I want you to talk about why it's called Street Art Chilango to begin with, but then you're creating this culture of street art based in the culture of Mexico, which is it's cross culture, like it's everything. So that's what I get so fired up about, like having met you and reviewing your work. Like I am such a nerd about all of this. So I'd love for you to get into why is it Street Art Chilango? I mean, I'm sure people looked it up. Why is it that specifically? And I love too that you used your background and ability to code and create an API, which then allows people to not only tag the tagging and the art that they've seen, but also that it shows up on a map. So anyway, let's get into Street Art Chilango and why is it called that to begin with?
All right, so chilango is a word that has a meaning that's been changing over the years. At
Okay.
the very beginning, that word meant for someone that was born outside of Mexico City, and then they had to go to Mexico City to live there because they had to work there.
Okay.
And then what happened is that we're going to talk about timing and luck, okay? Because also uh, what happened is that in I think it was the year 2013, 14 or something like that, the government decided to change the name of Mexico City. It's always been Mexico City in English, but in Spanish it used to be Distrito Federal, so
Okay.
federal district. And they decided that they were done with that and that they changed it to Ciudad de Mexico. So
Okay.
So when that happened, we used to call every person that lived in Distrito Federal, we call them defeños. But now,
Defeños.
yes, but now with Ciudad de Mexico, how do you call them? So Ciudad de Mexiqueños. No, that sounds weird.
Yeah.
So everybody started using the word Chilango just from midnight on the day that they changed it.
Interesting.
And I chose that word because I love it, because I love words with a ch. I find them all like super Mexican cultural, and it sounded like different, and that's why I put street art and then Chilango instead of whatever Defeño or Mexico City.
Yes.
And as I was saying, everything is about luck and timing, just like that happened. And the other thing that happened is that just in that last decade, we had the mass adoption of the smartphone,
Yeah.
which was really what created this cross cultural clash that you just mentioned. It is not that the walls were not there, or actually the art was not there. The most profound finding that I did with the API was that it was already full of street art. The problem is that people didn't know about it,
Yeah.
was not being documented. So as they started appearing on the APIs, I actually went and took the metro to take the pictures of where these murals were, and knew about, started learning about the artists, and then actually what happened is that since the mass adoption of the smartphone, people started using the the camera it has and the social abilities, integration abilities it has, so that a wall became a global thing instead of a
Yeah.
local thing, in the sense that you only had to take your phone out, take a picture, upload it to any social network, and then boom, all the world could know about that forgotten piece that was in the middle of nowhere, hidden in an urban area. And that's actually what created this whole boom. It's how technology is changing the human species bit by bit, and is changing the way we understand about certain concepts. Like when social networks were created, the first concept that was radically transformed was privacy, you
Yeah.
know. Then in the next decade, it was to change what is local to global, and the ability just show anything to anybody around the world. No, it's going to be very interesting what this decade with the AI is going to change. I think it's going to be intimacy, because of all the things that you tell to the AI that
Sure.
that you may not tell to anybody else, and then you're already spilling the soup.
That's right. I think it's really interesting that you brought this up. You and I were talking about this the other day. The role of the smartphone and technology and how that really brought to light this whole street art world. And as I was listening to you, I think that movement actually already created some level of intimacy. And what I mean by that is, I know one of my favorite pastimes has been to take pictures of street art, whatever city I'm in, wherever I'm traveling, and posting it because I love it. And I think the ability for others to do that, because some people might go, well, that's someone who's just tagging the wall, whatever, right? But I think it brings a level of humanity. That's why I think it's also intimacy, because then it's a human being who's created that. It's an artist. And, when I hear you talk about you're learning about this artist, this culture that you tapped into in Berlin and then really made it true to the culture in Mexico, right? And created this community of street artists who now are all of a sudden connected. I think that's phenomenal. I mean, I think about the title of culture and doing that for artists in that community. I mean, you did that with your creative kind of essence as well as just your knowledge of technology. But then the one thing that I know that I wanted to talk about is this is all in the street, but then I know street art for me has become super mainstream because now you've got like people like me, also companies where it's kind of like, well, how do we bring that into everyday life? And so I'd love to get your take too on And you've worked on so many cool projects, and we saw a little bit in the video up front about how companies have now tapped into you to help them create culture, whether it's the culture of their company or their product or the culture for their people inside the company. So um, I'd love for you to talk about that. I know I've got a few more things that we can show too. So,
Sure, sure. So it all started with the website and the API, and
okay.
then just uploading pictures to social networks, and it started going really big. And then we got like interviews to newspapers, TV shows, whatever. So I decided that there to be actually like real culture, we needed to actually be and meet in real life, you know. So that's
Yeah.
I decided to create a tour, a street art tour. So I on June 1st of 2013, I created the first street art tour in Mexico, and you'll call it destiny as always. And that day I met my wife Lourdes.
Nice.
She was an attendee to my first tour, but we didn't like get along that day. But I just met her. Okay, I just wanna just say that. And then I started creating a tour every Saturday so that people could actually go and see all these murals and street art on their like in real life, to actually see what they were seeing on the social networks and
Yeah.
connection. What happened next is that without actually even thinking about it, I started receiving emails and requests about that they some people wanted their own street art in their houses or businesses or whatever, whatnot. And I said, like, well, yes, I already know all the artists. Why not? So
Yeah.
I started like doing that, and the first request was actually a very symbolic and beautiful request. It was by a company that did books for the blind, which are coded in Braille code,
Yeah.
and they're all white. They're like, if you see them from afar, you see like they are like blank, but they're not
Yeah.
blank. The dots are not colored; they are white as well.
Yeah.
So they had a lot of problem explaining to everybody why their books were kind of blank to the eye, but they were actually full of information. And they thought that the best way of doing that was to paint a mural in their um, inside of their industry, like of their fabric. That's not fabric of the well, their shop.
Yeah. Yep. Like,
And yeah, that's what we did. So we painted. We came up with the creative process of having a parent having the hands of his child onto a blank book, and then with his imagination having all these uh, characters like birds with hats and stuff being on top of the book, as if they were part of what he was reading. And that's our the very first mural that we did. And from there on, everybody, like every company, brand, and who not, they saw the opportunity and the possibilities
yeah.
of actually using murals again and painting anything that they had in mind, or with the help of an artist, with the help of a creative, with the help of an art director, to actually put that all into one image that could tell you a story, that could tell you more, that could create culture for your company. And that's how this ball started rolling.
Wow. I love, first of all, you met Lourdes on your first day, June 1st, 2013, of doing the art tour. So also meant to be. That's what I believe. But then you use the word in real life, right? IRL, in real life, connection, humanity. And to make it real and to create this culture, it's not just about seeing these posts and these pictures online, that there's an emotion to it. And I think you experience that emotion when you're with other people, and it's a different vibe. So I love that you use that word connection. And I'm using the word humanity because I think that's also a piece of creating culture, that while there's this amazing community you can create um, virtually, I think it has meaning, and then that emotion really comes through, which I think is part of culture. So that's awesome. And I was impressed too. And I want to show this because you shared this with me. And for those who've already stalked NRO on his Instagram, one of the huge companies, although beautiful, and actually I saw my friend Laura posted that she just got chills. Dude, I've been getting chills every story that you've been telling. Like all these things are meant to be. Um, but you were mentioning how a huge company, Walt Disney, engage you to help them. And if you don't mind, I want to share with the group really quickly some of the posts from I'll just say Disney properties that y'all might recognize. So hold on a moment. Let's take a look.
Go ahead.
And then I want to kind of cruise to this next one, other properties. All right, so we just showed a lot. I'd love for you to kind of jump into that first set of pictures, which I think everyone likely noticed. Star Wars. So how did that come all about? And why did that come about?
Well, that was something I didn't see coming. One day I just received a call, and it turned out to be like an executive from Walt Disney Corporation in Mexico, and they say we want to talk to you like really seriously. Come to our office. And at the first moment, I was like scared, like, oh my god, what happened? I did something wrong. So I went there to the meet, and then they introduced me to the head of marketing, and he said like we we want to like relaunch Star Wars classic characters, and think you are the proper like mean to do it. So what would you do to actually relaunch this whole thing, this whole universe? And I said, well, there's nothing more interesting in Mexico than Mexican humor. So we decided that the way to go was to actually make street art, uh, like in the style of stencils of any of the original characters, but doing Mexican things.
Yeah,
So that was like the real bet, because like the guys at Disney say, like the only thing you're not allowed to do is like to ridiculize any of the characters, but if they're
sure.
something Mexican, I mean, I think guess it's okay.
I'm going to play this again while you talk so that people can see it. I think you can still hear us. Yeah. While you talk about this.
So there's R2D2 like uh, projecting a game for children on the
Little
floor.
hopscotch. I love that. That's so good. And then look at all the stormtroopers.
Yeah, the
What's going on there?
stormtrooper. We just that was a little bit later, but yeah. Then there's this C3PO as an old metal scrapper. The Princess Leia. You can see me there with with my glove that I just painted it, and we put it there as a like for parking, to pay parking for 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 the ship. There's Luke in a piñata store.
I so love this. It
There's the
cracks me up.
airship that has the shape of a pizza, and there's this AT-AT the size of a dog with an actual leash and a dog next to it.
That's awesome. Anyway, I think it's cool that you're able to show what cultural Mexican things are happening to the tune of Star Wars,
Yeah,
and then even with the other Disney properties, which I'll play again, and you can just talk about those really quickly. Like, how did those come about? Well,
So
Alice in Wonderland and
from there on, like the first project became like so exciting that they loved this, and we started doing stuff for Alice in Wonderland, for Coco, and so many other projects as well. So that was a great era.
yeah, there's also one more that you shared with actually a very Mexican character.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now it's like a big anniversary of Lucha Libre, and we
Yes.
did this outside of Lucha Libre Stadium or Coliseum, whatever the name is, and we actually made it Mexican in the sense that we uh, there's that mask in
Yeah.
blue, yellow. It didn't exist back then. We definitely made a research so that we were not insulting anybody by Darth Maul already taking their mask off. So,
That's hilarious.
and we
That's so
painted that
good.
super huge mural, and that was a all-in kind of bet, and I'm glad it worked out. And now that we have this anniversary coming soon for Lucha Libre, since its beginnings, it's still there, and I'm gonna post it a lot. I think it's gonna get a lot of attention, and I think the guys at Disney, they really were visionaries in getting into this street art thing like really soon, adopting it like early, very early, and giving me the chance to actually let my creativity flow and do all these projects that actually changed my life. And then many other companies started like coming in. I've done stuff for Ray-Ban, Xbox, Activision, uh, a lot of them, like even airlines, etc. So it's about how you can use the power of street art to for, tell a story that's related to something, and that's always what I tell all the marketing directors. Is like the more authentic, the less of a commercial, like a publicity ad it is, the better it's going to flow, because you don't have to like tell everybody like, hey, come buy my brand. You just
Yeah.
have to just kindly remind them who you are, and just to let the artists do their thing and let their mind fly, and they'll come up with something very, very interesting. And that's what we do at Sachcrew. So this is my group of painters, artists, and creatives, and everything that I put together under my art direction to actually do all this kind of murals for anybody that actually wants them. And it doesn't have to be like big corporations. I've done like for small businesses like restaurants, offices,
Yeah.
co-workings, and even houses. Like people that they have the means, they say like, I want a piece of street art in my place, in my living room.
Yes.
And I'm like, yeah, that's the kind of work I love the most.
I love it. And I love too about what you're saying, especially with large corporations, that whatever you do, that it's authentic and it's not disingenuous, I guess, but authentic to the culture that you're trying to root it in, tell stories to, etc. And I also want to point out, I won't play it again, but maybe we can play it at the very end when we leave. But the end of the beginning video, there's a video that shows just a bunch of people walking up to a piece of art that they all had that they all participated in. And I also showed pictures that you shared with me of Frida Kahlo. And
Yeah,
when I first met you, I remember you were telling me about the work you've done with companies to help bring their people together, communities to help bring people together through art. So say more about that and what is that process like? Because that's also a part of how you've enabled, empowered others to create culture. So talk about that.
totally.
Oh no, Henaro.
Hi, sorry.
Hi. No worries.
Incoming call, sorry. So that first video that you showed was about like my art as a person, not me as an art director, not me as like this street art chilango kind of thing. Those are just my personal artistic endeavors. So they all have to do with this Dalmatian that actually can see one of them here.
Yeah.
which is the very first one I painted in Berlin in 2012, and it changed my life ever since. So I've been painting that dog like more than 100 times around the world: Indonesia,
Oh, wow.
Barcelona, Germany, USA. In Wynwood, we went to paint the Wynwood district a couple of times. That's where that Frida is.
Oh,
That,
wow. Down in Florida, in
yeah,
Miami. Yeah, cool. I love that. I love that area.
uh, that's uh, that's a picture I have with Lourdes. That's that we painted that Frida in I think 23rd Street with First Street in Wynwood, and it stood there for like 4 years, which is like
Amazing.
a record for Wynwood. Like they paint over your mural like 2 minutes after you finish it. And so that's my personal kind of take at being an artist. And I was kind after being all day with all kinds of artists and showcasing all of their artworks on my social, my website, etc. I kind of became like fed up of ego. Everybody's
Mm-hmm.
like the most egoistic person. So I decided, why not create a piece of art that is not made just by one artist, but instead is made out collectively.
Yes.
So I started like thinking, how could that be done? So I started thinking, how about like when you lend out the spray can to anybody, like a passerby that's on the street, they will do whatever they want. They will not be like coordinating a piece of the art, because that always ends up being like a horrible, like doodly kind of thing. And I hate that, actually, that specific kind of imagery aesthetics. So I said, like, let's make a piece of art where even the person that is painting it, if he does whatever he does, like, it's not doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Whatever he did is just gonna add up. So I started like thinking about like, how can I do that? So I came up with this idea that if I painted the wall in black first, all black background,
Mm-hmm.
and then I designed an image in Photoshop that I passed through a half tone filter in the shape of a stripe, then half of the information of a half tone filter is gone immediately. It's a digital filter.
Yeah.
And and then you could actually paste the opposite of that image in a vinyl, self-adherent vinyl, to the wall, also in, in the color of black. So you will still have a black wall with just black vinyl added to it, but it just has the half of it. So then I can invite people, anybody, to use the spray can, and start like painting whatever they want. So I've actually done this in a couple of shows and live events that I've been hired to do this. And so everybody comes in, everybody loves doing the spray can, and they do that for like 5 hours or whatever, like half of like
Yeah.
for 80% of the time of the event, and everybody's like soaked because they used the spray can. And then when after that happened, the whole wall will be in one, just in a one, like all colorful, different colors, but all painted. And then people will say like, well, this is exactly the kind of thing that happens when you give people a spray can. They'll end up like all doodly and all colored, and makes no. And that's where the genius kicks in, because then I invite every person that actually painted, or any other passerby, to kindly remove one of the stripes of the vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
So when everybody starts removing them, then then we start like the actual final image starts to come alive. And when that happens, everybody's like, whoa, what did we just do together? So so I love this kind of way of doing murals, which is not me being the artist, but it's rather everybody collaborating together that we actually create the piece together. And yeah, that's one of my styles that I do as a personal, as an artist in person, and that's something that really fulfills me because it's not about ego. It's more about it's all of us doing this together. We just need a little bit of art direction.
I love that. And actually, it's such a good metaphor for, I'm a big believer in culture needs to be co created. It's not just about one person. Now, I also love the imagery of Frida Kahlo and how, there's a very specific intent, I guess, or art direction that you've created, but then you've created a space where everyone uh, can feel free and inspired to contribute. That's so cool.
I have here in Mexico on a metal plate. This was actually the first one I created.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we lost your audio for a little bit while you were walking. That's so cool.
Thank you. And yeah, well, so I love Frida Kahlo, although a lot of people don't like her. I love her. She's a Mexican. And I think that although Mexican culture is great, sometimes it's quite divided
Hmm.
because a lot of people don't like whatever the other guy's doing, and everybody is kind of a hater. And so there are like very few things that actually like, yeah, a group or unite
Yeah.
Mexicans. So one of them is the national team of soccer when they're winning. The other one is the Virgin Guadalupe.
Hmm.
And then from there on, like tacos is also like a great
Yeah.
uniter. But from those off, like people start like whatever subject you say, people are like, no, I don't like that guy. I don't like this. I don't like the other. So that's why I've made a lot of pieces about Frida because I think that she's a great icon that kind of unites all of Mexico. And I also get inspiration of her because of she being part of the pack of the muralists that became
Yeah.
stars like 100 years ago, and how they live their lives, and that's something that's always inspired me. And even though it's a little corny or cliche, I still love all of her doings.
It's not cliche at all. And I love too that it was Frida once people expressed their art through the spray can and then pulled the strips off. And it was very not ego and undoodly. Like you're talking about being doodly. I know
It's
that we are coming to the top of the hour. And I know we've been talking all about culture and culture co creation and living your passion. If you had one piece of advice for anyone listening and watching today on what they can do as soon as they are done listening to this, what they can be doing in their life to inspire culture in the way that you have.
Well, one piece of advice that I follow myself and I try to follow even more and be more disciplined with it is to follow your ideas and actually do them. You know, just try like put on a list whatever you need for them to be done and just go and accomplish them. And then when you have that whole thing going on, start showing it to your friends and family, and open like some social account and just start the ball rolling because that's how I have gotten to create things, and that's my method of doing stuff. I never encourage anybody just to design everything to the last detail
Yeah,
before. For me is just like start doing it right away, begin very small and start growing. So and just do the things, don't leave them in your mind or in the sketch. Just go ahead and do them.
I love it. Do what you're dreaming about and share it with people. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I think it's a journey. And then
Yeah.
because you're such a cool artist, I always love asking this question too. What are you reading, listening, watching, wearing, eating? Like, what is your favorite pop culture thing, of course, besides art these days that you are super into?
Well, I love playing chess. you know uh,
Chess?
I, yeah, I've been playing chess like for 20 years, almost on a day by day basis. I love ancient philosophers' life, Stoics, all the Greeks. I'm reading a book about the death of Hypatia,
Oh,
the
wow.
Greek philosopher living in Alexandria in the 400s. Um, and what else? I love dogs, and I'm starting this project with friends called Saturday Dog Club, so that it's kind of the same as the street art tour that I created in Mexico, but this time it's not for street art, but to walk dogs and meet
Yes.
people and just hang out and find people that are connecting to you and just get together with like-minded persons and just go ahead do stuff like that. My favorite food is Peruvian and Mexican food. That would be like a top match between those two.
Yeah.
Um, well, I love LA. I love spend time there too.
Well, I mean, there's just so much to catch up on. And actually, for those of you based in LA, we were just talking about these friends who you're doing work with Saturday Dog Club. Um, Stay tuned in the city and communities of LA as it relates to Saturday Dog Club and Henaro just showing up and helping bring that to life. So excited about that. And you know what? I wanted to mention this, but it's perfect now. I love that you identified Frida Kahlo. And when you and I scheduled this, I had no idea that would land on her birthday.
Oh my,
Today is Frida Kahlo's birthday, born in 1907. I know she passed. She was young. She was 19 in 1954. But today is actually the anniversary of her birthday. So wild that we are talking about it and talking about you and your journey on this day. Um, anyway, Hinaro, how can people find you? I know that they've saw it in the pictures that we put up there, but give us your Instagram, your website. How can people get a hold of you?
sure. Like I prefer to use my personal Instagram, which is Genaro underscore visual craft.
Okay.
You can also follow all the work we're doing as a crew at Sachcrew all together. Also on Instagram, you can learn about the Street Art Chilango project right on the website streetartchilango.com. You can also learn about the tour that we have there. That I failed to mention that we got like a prize from the government for
Oh,
promoting.
wow.
We got uh, article in the New York Times what to do in 36 hours in Mexico City, and so you can find all of that in streetartchilango.com. And well, yeah, I think that's the way to go.
Excellent. Well, everyone, we will make sure we post all of this in the show notes. You can find Henaro on Instagram. Henaro underscore visual craft is kind of a first step and getting in touch with you personally. Feliz cumpleaños, Frida Kahlo, right? And oh my gosh, my heart and my thanks go out to you. Can't wait to see you and Lourdes again, likely in Los Angeles, with potential future guests. We'll talk about Saturday Dog Club. And happy CultureCast, everyone. Make sure you catch this all. CultureCast, either on LinkedIn, on my website. Um, you can catch it on Substack, YouTube, Twitter, and I know I've probably missed and all the podcasts out there. So you can see all of this again at your leisure at another time. And what I think I'm going to do, Hinaro, and our next CultureCast is actually next Tuesday, the 11th, live with Jocelyn Herman Saccio, who is a master coach. And let's talk about how you can create versus react in your life and create a culture versus react to culture. So, with that, I'm going to play us out with the video that we played in with so that people can see it.
All right.
And we'll see everybody the next time. But let's play this. Okay. Ciao. Good to see you.